So the purchase note is used when making attachments to POs and also to requisitions. You can see that in this flowchart here. It both it points back to here and points back to here. Now, in further detail, let's bring this up. Let's dig into this a little bit more. There are no input or output parameters. Now at this point it's just grabbing data from the starting entry, and which leads to this field right here, which can be, you can have this is a multiple entry field, so it has to discern and uses this token. It uses a blank here, and this is used later on, I believe. But let's focus on this for now. The not note type, doc type. It takes every one of the values from the multiple field of doc type, and it says, as long as it's not a note, go ahead and modify this token. All right. So then we have, what kind of document, and it would be one of two. It would be requisition or it would be PO. So once that has been determined, it does this search, and let's take a look at this search now. It says where there's no link ID, where the doc type is that token and also note, so pretty much omit anything that's a note, and if it's RTF and the file size is 182. Now this is important because just a few moments ago I was troubleshooting why this didn't work, and it was because I had entered some data into a note, but I didn't rename it. So its file name was, you know, blank requisition note, but it was omitted from the search because since I had typed something in there, it wasn't 182 bytes anymore, it was 33 kilobytes, so it was omitted, and the search thought that it needed to create another note. So at any rate, just file that away. So when there is a brand new one without any text in it, it's 182 bytes. And it also looks for something with the name note, and it looks in the token for the entry path. So this conditional sequence says if it hasn't returned anything, then whatever, we're done. If it returns anything greater than 0, then so looking, this is the criteria, and if there are no other blank note, this should be modified. It should say blank that token for doc type note files, then create the entry note. So this creates a blank Laserfiche document, and it names it such using the token, puts it in the entry path, and it goes to the server and attaches this, which I had to set up over here in the managed, server attachments thing. At any rate, this is a RTF file that's on the server. Then it copies the metadata from the starting entry to this new document. It assigns some data to it, makes sure that there's nothing in the link ID, and it calls it a note because it's about to be. Create an entry link. Okay, so this creates another Laserfiche document. Now it's blank at this point, but it calls it this, and it puts it here on the at this path. And this is where the entry ID of that document that was just made, it takes the entry ID of this and it puts it into the path. So that's where that folder name came from in the overview. Assigns this piece of information for searching later, and I also use that to do I use that later on. Now this is the interesting part, the scripting. This is the script that creates the LFE file. And just a quick look here, the syntax is very important. You know, this is Visual Basic-esque. So you create your dimensions and call them whatever they are, as string. I called it this, and then this is where you can take your token and enter it in. Now you just have to know this syntax. There aren't tools for you to use. So here I create my 3 dimensions using tokens, and then I use them here later on. I create this on the server. This is a path on the server saying requisition, creation ID. So here's you know, requisition number, the ID, and then a TXT file. So in that TXT file, here is some text that goes into it, and this, in essence, all I need to do is put in the creation ID here into this text, and voila, it becomes a Laserfish link. Then it iterates here 5 times, however many times here, and enters that into the note, or the TXT file rather. And then I rename it. I rename it LFE. And this is somewhat of a unique ID. I use the entry ID number here. And granted, remember, this is renamed on the server only. So now that that is done, I attach it. I attach that LFE file to, as an electronic document, to this create ID. Copy some metadata in there. I clear a bunch of values out to simplify it, because it's just the LFE node. It's relatively useless, but I do call it a node link for all intents and purposes. I rename it. Which one am I? Okay, yeah, I renamed the link here. So it's the same name as the note file itself. And then I link the two together. I link the note to the LFE file. And now this script runs, and this removes it from the server. So let's look at this. Here I do the same thing. I use this syntax to use tokens. Basically, I just have the requisition number and the ID, because that's all I used when I named it in the previous scripting activity. So I say file delete. Here's the path, and here's the file name, which I used earlier, so it knows which one to delete. The note shortcuts. It finds where the shortcuts are, and it does some searching here. I'm not sure what this is for, to be honest with you. And this searching looks for potential duplicate, or for duplicate note types in the entry path. You see the parenthesis here and an asterisk. Whenever there's a duplicate, Laserfish names it parenthesis 2, parenthesis 3, etc., etc. It looks for anything like that, and it deletes it. And then here's the conditional sequence. If it returns something in the search, then for each one, find it, and you know, if it finds it, then delete the shortcut folder and the folder itself, and the link folder. So it removes any potential LFE link, and it also removes the note file itself. And in this note on this, poor choice of words. A side note about this. Earlier today I was doing a search, what I was mentioning, and I entered data into it, and it omitted this. So it had carried on and created an additional note. So what that means is, when this search ran, it found that duplicate, because when it created this additional note, the file name took on a number 2 parenthesis. This search found it and removed it. The issue there, and this is intended, is that the file that I was speaking about, that the file name was the same, blank note, but I'd entered data into it, I'd entered some text into it, but the file name didn't change. It was not picked up, it was not removed, and by design it stays there. So the standing rule is, if you don't rename the note then you will still be using it. It will still be waiting for you to use, and then hopefully the user will see that, oh, I didn't rename this, and then they will rename it and a new blank note will be generated. So that is by design, that one, that they are omitted from the search, and two, that duplicates are deleted before that one that may have some text in it and was omitted from the previous search. And that's about it.